welcome back to Accountability is Trending. I'm your host, Tina Johnson. My faithful co-host, Chris Hopkins, is fishing and he's on a road trip, so he's not going to make it today. So it's going to be me, and my guest is going to be Karl Allred. Many of you already know Karl. He's been part of the Republican Party in Uinta County. He was a interim Secretary of State for a bit, and he is running for county commissioner, and in transparency, I'm also running for state senate. But this isn't really about that. What we want to talk about today is going to be the Republican Party, where it sits now, and how it got to this point. So, how's it going, Karl?
That's going good, Tina. I'm glad to be here with you.
Good. Anything exciting going on in your life?
Just day to day, waiting for the election to come up and working towards that.
There you go. So, what I wanted to do is dive in. I want to start out today talking about the political landscape. And I really like the way that you talk about the Republican Party and what it means to be a platform Republican. So, if you could go into a little bit of that and just let the people know, what does that mean?
Sure. A lot of people sometimes have some misconceptions about the Republican Party, some of our governing documents, the platform, the bylaws, and things. So I like to explain a little bit about how we get those documents. Generally, so every single county and the precincts on the years when we have the party conventions, we start off with the caucus, and that's anybody who is a registered Republican in the party can participate in the caucus. So that's supposed to be sent out, supposed to be advertised, all that. And people that are in your precinct show up for the precinct caucuses. Now, at that, it's kind of a quick little meeting, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, but you can bring forth ideas that you have for resolutions, for platforms, for bylaws changes. One thing that a lot of people don't understand, resolutions are not a statement of exactly this is what the party is going to live by. The resolution is merely the voice of the party. It's how we give our party position on any subject, usually current events. So that's what resolutions are. Now, the party platform, on the other hand, is a statement of this is what it means to be a Republican. So people can bring those to the caucus. From there, the caucus also elects delegates to the county convention. Now, generally, for example, here in Uinta County, we've always said, okay, precinct committee people are automatic delegates to the county convention. And then we've doubled that number so that we have an equal number of at-large delegates. At the county convention, they'll vote on resolutions, they'll vote on bylaws changes, and on platform changes.
I have a question right there.
Yes.
So with resolutions, so I got to be a delegate this year to the county caucus, and anybody could bring a resolution to the county caucus, right?
Are you saying to the county convention?
To the county convention.
That
yes.
is correct. Anybody can bring it on
And
whatever subject they want.
And so that really is a voice of the people bringing their resolutions, and then it is voted on by the body of Uinta County. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And that's also true with bylaws changes and with platform changes. Anybody can bring those there at the county convention, and the entire convention votes on them. If we say Uinta County agrees with this bylaws change, platform, or a resolution, then those will be taken from our county convention on up to the state convention. So we say, okay, Uinta County believes that we should go with this resolution. Like a lot of times there's things like the party stands, opposed to abortion, or we don't like we don't like participating in this war or police action anywhere. So whatever anybody, you, me, anybody there can bring their opinion to the county convention. At that, it gets debated, it gets talked about, and if the body as a whole says, we agree with this is our statement, then we vote, and if it gets voted in, then it will go on, it'll be passed up to the state convention.
Okay.
So when we get to the state convention, again, the county convention votes on the delegates to the state convention. Each county has 3 automatic delegates. That's going to be the county chairman, the state committee man, and the state committee woman. Many years ago, that didn't used to be the case. They weren't automatics, but because they are our representatives on the state central committee, and for 2 years there, they do a lot of work at the state party committee meetings. We made them automatic delegates to the state convention because sometimes they didn't get elected as delegates, but yet they put in 2 years worth of work on these different subjects that will be talked about at the state convention. So they are our 3 automatics. The rest
So
of
they truly represent Uinta County. Those 3 votes represent for the full 2 years.
They are supposed to, yes.
Okay.
So when we get to the state convention, we have delegates that are going to the state convention that are appointed to serve on the different committees. The 3 main issue committees is bylaws, platforms, and resolutions. Those deal with these 3 items that are passed forth from all 23 counties. So, for example, bylaws took us 2 solid full days this year. So did resolutions. Those are the 2 longest and biggest because they have the most. Then we have the platforms committee. Again, anything that is passed at the counties comes forth there. So in the committees, what they'll do is they'll take if 2 or 3 counties voted the same change, they would combine those. And maybe a little bit of wordsmithing here and there to make them all compatible so that we deal with one on the day of the convention, because we only have one day that takes place. And we have a lot of business to take care of there. So the committee work is very important to get to that final document that we're going to present to the state convention.
Right.
But again, all this is coming up from the from the precinct caucuses to the county convention, finally to the state convention. And I really want to talk about the platform here because, again, this is a document that says, as Republicans in Wyoming, this is what core principles that we believe in. And as we worked this, I was a very integral part of changing the platform the way it is now. And so they are supposed to be endearing principles that are long-lasting and rarely change. So, if we're conservative Republicans, again, we're against abortion. We're against raising taxes. We're against government getting involved in businesses and things. So those are principles that we have said for many years. This is what it is to be a Republican.
And so, question there. So I kind of want to bring the Freedom Caucus in there.
Yes.
Is the Freedom Caucus the ones who came up with those principles?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Now, they do align very closely with the Republican Party platforms. But the platform, the document that we have now, that came from the precinct caucuses to the county conventions to the state. So when we go to the state convention, and there's 500 or so approximately, depending on the year. Sometimes we've had that many. Sometimes we've had 250 different delegates from across the state. This truly is the grassroots of the Republican Party speaking as a voice. So all the way this comes up into this finalization at the state party convention on the Saturday that it's held, that's the culmination of a lot of time and effort of people all across the state. And they bring this in, and then the final document, what we vote on at the state convention, we say, this is what it means to be a Republican. And so it truly is the voice of the people. The Freedom Caucus did not come up with this. The more liberal side didn't come up, the Wyoming Caucus. None of these people as a whole came up and dictated this to the party. This is the grassroots of the party. This is what the party themselves voted on and says, this is what it is to be Republican.
And it should represent a little bit of everyone because everyone had a little bit of voice. They debated. It's just like the laws. Everybody had a part and they were able to say their part and get there. They may not agree with it, but at the end of the day, the bulk of the people agreed with the platform. Is that correct?
That's correct. And again, anybody from across the entire state can get those changes brought up if they want to present a different opinion. I remember for probably about 4 conventions in a row, we had one young lady who kept trying to bring up that we accepted abortion as a party platform. And that overwhelmingly got voted down, flat out, no question. It was almost a unanimous vote, but she kept bringing it, as is her right. She can bring that. The thing is the party doesn't agree with that. And personally, I've been the same my entire life. And the day the Republican Party decides to support abortion, I would probably have to leave the party at that point, because that's not me. And that is not what I believe in and I represent. But as it is, the document that we've come up with, I wholeheartedly agree with every single plank on that platform. So, again, as we've talked about the platform, this is what it is to be a Republican in Wyoming, is what our platform says. But along those same lines, the bylaws, that's the governing document that determines how we hold meetings, how we conduct ourselves as Republicans at the county level, at the state level. And again, those are voted on by the body of the Republican Party. So when we say things like, for example, that we follow Robert's Rules of Orders unless the bylaws say differently. Because the bylaws are up here, Robert's Rules is next. But you don't get to just say, well, I don't like Robert's Rules and I don't want to follow them.
So I have a question there.
Yes.
Is the Republican Party the only organization that uses bylaws, or is that something that is universal in all organizations?
Bylaws are in basically all organizations. At different times, I've been a member of the Eagles. I'm currently in the American Legion. I've been in numerous different organizations, and they all have bylaws. That's how we conduct things orderly. Even corporations have bylaws that they follow. And like say, that's how you keep things organized. Without bylaws, you're just a group of guys together in a mass hysteria. Bylaws organize things and they keep, polite debate. They really are rules that we live by. And so it does bother me a lot when we in the past have had people who said, we don't care what the bylaws are and we're not going to be held to them. Well, wait a minute, hold on. The body of the entire Republican Party voted and says, this is how we're going to organize ourselves and this is what we're going to follow. And, you know, again, if you agree with the body, if you agree with the organization, they're the ones who came up with these bylaws. And they said, this is how we want to conduct our business. So those are very important to me. Like I said, yeah, resolutions are not as much. They are the voice of the party. They say this is a position statement. Those change and they go back and forth all over the place. But the bylaws and the platform, those are the bedrock of the party, whether it's the Republican Party, the Democrat, the Constitution Party, all these deliberative bodies, that's what defines them.
And so, and the chairperson, because even if they were per se mayor, they had to follow bylaws, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. So bylaws are not just subject to the party. People who become the chairman of the Republican Party understand and have understood the importance of the bylaws of the organization throughout time. Is that correct?
They should understand that. And that's kind of one thing that comes important where you choose a chairman or other officers of the party that have been involved in it and understand how it works. Sometimes we have people come in from the outside that have never taken part in the party at all. They don't even understand anything about the purpose of the party. And they come in and then they say, well, we want to run it our way. But wait a minute, hold on. We have these laws. You know, how would society be if somebody comes in and just says, well, we don't care what the laws are. We're just going to do what we want.
Right.
It doesn't work out very well. It's not very organized. And we end up with mass hysteria.
And chaos.
Yes, we do.
So I just kind of want to slip over into when I first got involved in the Republican Party. I'm going to admit I was one of those people who saw the R. I assumed that everybody who had an R thought like me and represented those values of, you know, the abortion or the, all of the things on the Republican Party. And when I got involved, it was around, I believe it was around COVID time. Um, and I was shocked to find out that there were people who were doing things a little differently than what I thought. And during that time was the Uinta County lawsuit. Now I came into it and I didn't know anybody out. I had a couple of acquaintances I'd met, but I didn't really know anybody in the party at that time. So I really want to kind of go into the Republican Party lawsuit for Uinta County. If you could walk me through the situation or the meeting that changed, that instigated the lawsuit.
Okay. Well, what happened was there was a group of people that didn't like the leadership in the party at the time in Uinta County. So as is their right, they put together people that they wanted to run for those leadership positions at our party elections. Well, they ran for it and they lost. The people in the party that so that's the precinct committee people that make those votes, voted them down and voted some of us back into office. So rather than saying, okay, well, we tried and we'll try again at the next election, kind of that's how you do, right? You lose some, you win some. I mean, I've lost plenty of elections over times, and that's kind of how you deal with it. We'll run again. Instead, they decided, well, we're going to force you to do it the way we want, and we want you out. So they filed a lawsuit. And I know a lot of times you might hear the word lawfare nowadays. And that's basically a minority group of people who want to force things their way. And so they turn to the courts to do it rather than turning to the people as they should. They turn to the courts. Now, as you've seen across times, the courts have ran extremely liberal at times. I know the one issue lawfare was used very well here in Uinta County over Uinta County School District number 1, instituting a policy of employees being able to have firearms in the school to protect our children. One individual did not like that, and he happens to be a lawyer. And so when we passed the policy, Tim Beppler turned and filed a lawsuit against the school district. And they cherry-picked a judge whose husband happened to have committed suicide by firearm, and she didn't like guns. So she threw out our policy at the school district, and they had to rewrite it and bring it back again. And then he filed suit again. Basically, we're just going to keep on suing you until we get what we want. Well, that's what happened with the Republican Party in Uinta County. They filed suit against us, against the party and us individually, myself, Lyle and Jana Williams, Elizabeth Jackson. So they filed suit against us. Now, one thing you got to realize is some of the players in this lawsuit, the Michaelites, for example, have been members of the party as precinct committee people for many years past. And we have ran these elections that exact way for well over 20 years. In fact,
so, just a question there.
Yes.
And you followed those elections according to the party bylaws that were already in place. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. In fact, I'll tell you, so 2 times in a row, when I was chairman at the time, because I was running for re-election to an office, when it came time for the county party elections, I didn't run the elections. I handed them over. One year, our national committee woman, Marty Halverson, who lives in Lincoln County, was down at our meeting as our national committee woman, and I handed it over the chair and let her run the elections. The next time, again, I was chair and I was a candidate in the election, so I didn't run the elections. Our county commissioner at the time, Eric South, happened to be at the meeting. I handed it over and he ran the elections. But again, they've always been in line with our bylaws. And even before it was in the bylaws, it's been custom to do that. Officers of an organization get to vote. I mean, could you even imagine, say, a board of a corporation or something where the officers of the corporation aren't allowed to vote? I mean, it's kind of ludicrous. Anyway, they didn't like the way that election ran, so they filed suit against us. Well, in that, not only did they file suit, but they had our county attorney refer it over to DCI, the Department of Criminal Investigations here in Wyoming, to investigate us for violating statute and trying to bring criminal charges against us. Again, I was just absolutely blown away. It's kind of like, you know what? We can all disagree at times, but that's kind of part of the thing. We act as, gentlemen and ladies, and we talk about things and we have disagreements and we go forward for the good of everybody. Instead, they actually tried to bring criminal charges against us. And our county attorney was complicit in that. She had DCI prepare a report. Then they appointed a special prosecutor because she didn't want to put her name on it. And they appointed the prosecutor, the county attorney up in Sublette County to look it over, the report and all that, and determine whether they were going to try to throw us in jail. You know, at the time, we didn't know that DCI was doing this investigation. They never came and talked to us. But they put their report together. It went to the special prosecutor, and that was about the time that we found out that they were trying to get criminal charges on us. And anyway,
and I just want to be clear.
Yes.
The elections had been ran the exact same way for many, many, many years. So
absolutely.
nothing new with there. And I just want to kind of talk about Biffy, because Biffy had 2 young children at the time.
Yes.
So she was the chairperson. So she goes to, they're talking about throwing her in federal prison, because these would be federal charges. Is that correct?
No, they're state charges.
They're state charges because,
yes.
Okay, because it's state election.
But it would have possibly what they were trying to do with these criminal charges could have thrown us in jail. Yes. Jail, prison.
We're doing the exact same thing that had been done for many, 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 many years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Some of the parties to the lawsuit, and I'll tell you, I mean, it's all public knowledge, but the Michaelites, Clarence Vranish, what's his name? Troy Nolan. These are people who had been part of these elections years past and never said a word. So it wasn't offensive to them when it went the way that they wanted or the way that they saw it go until this time. And now when it goes again, we did the elections the exact same way, but they wanted a different outcome. And because of that, then they were going to bring the lawsuit, try to get criminal charges on us. And I mean, for doing what we've always done.
Right.
But now we're looking at the possibility of going to jail over it. And it's in the state party bylaws there too. And they say, well, not every county does it. You're right. There's a couple of counties that didn't. But the majority of counties across the state did the exact same thing. Officers got to vote in the party elections.
So I kind of want to go into the cost. What did it cost you guys financially to support yourselves through this lawsuit and this lawfare?
Well, originally it went to a district court here in Uinta County. And we won. Judge Blumel, who, by the way, happens to be a Democrat, he said, no, you followed the bylaws and things, and that does. See, the funny thing is there's the state of California, the state of Utah, the state of New Jersey, the state of Delaware, all over, there are these cases that have gone to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the U.S. Supreme Court says, yes, the party is a private organization. Their bylaws overrule what somebody puts in state statute. And in fact, the case out of California, the Supreme Court made that decision, and every state in the union, with the exception of 2, Wyoming and South Dakota, has complied with that U.S. Supreme Court ruling. Every state in the country. The United States Supreme Court, there is no higher place to appeal it to, has ruled with the party's right to run their organization, with the internal workings of the party, which is elections. So Wyoming is in violation already, right off the bat, of the U.S. Supreme Court ruling. And Judge Blumel ruled correctly when he says, no, they did things okay, there's no problem. Well, again, these people, and they're using money from some very rich people here in the state. The head name on the lawsuit, John Conrad, it didn't cost him anything. So they were using money from other people. So while it wasn't costing them, it cost us personally. I don't know exactly the exact dollars, but it was in the neighborhood of 16,000 that we put up personally. Then the party had to put up because the party was a named defendant. So the party had to pay some. And, the total bill off to the attorney was in somewhere in the neighborhood of $55,000 for all this. They did negotiate down with the attorney, and he gave discounts and he cut prices down. So it was substantially less. He wrote off a lot of that, a lot of those fees. But that's a lot of dang money.
And that was 16,000 per person?
No, that was
the those, four of you
that
together.
Was myself, Jana, Lyle, and Biff.
Okay.
That's what we personally paid for. The rest was paid for by the party. Now, we did have some donations from one of the state central committee parties. They passed the hat and threw some money in for it too. So there was some donations from around that helped assist that. But really, it took a lot of money out of us personally. And in fact, the county party, the precinct committee people and stuff, voted several times that the party would reimburse us our personal money. Well, that never happened. That never happened. And that's
and so what happened with the criminal charges? They were never brought?
Well, when it was sent up to to a special prosecutor, again, the Sublette County attorney, he looked it over and he says, I don't see anything to prosecute criminally here. He says there's no case. So he threw it out. He declined to press charges on us. But until that point, again, there was a real possibility that here we are trying to serve the people, trying to do what is good for Uinta County and do what we've always done and work for the party. And we were looking at possibly going to jail over it.
And how long did that take? How long was that process?
I don't really know, Tina, but it was several months.
Okay, so it was quite some time.
Yes, from the time that they first, did this DCI investigation and that they were trying to press criminal charges on us. And I mean, it was bad enough that they sued the party, the Republican Party, but then to turn around and, I'll tell you, being as an officer of the party, that doesn't pay us anything. Okay. And in fact, I had guys at work who go, well, how much do you make from this? And I go, I don't make anything. I have spent thousands of dollars, traveled thousands of miles across the entire state, given up vacations, given up time with my family and everything to go to these state central committee meetings all across the state, to go to the legislature, work with them, along with many other elected officials across the entire state. It has personally cost me in those positions, just by the nature of the positions that I've held, it's cost me thousands upon thousands of dollars that I paid for personally, because the party doesn't pay that. It is a volunteer position. And for that, it ended up costing us a lot of money, and we had to look at possibly going to jail. I'll tell you, it was a very stressful time for a lot of us that we had to go through that, and that hasn't gone away.
And so, tell us a little bit about. So it made its way to the Wyoming Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled different. What did they decide?
Well, the Supreme Court didn't rule on the issue. The only thing that they ruled on was they said, yes, we violated the state statute. They didn't rule on the constitutionality of the state statute. They didn't rule on whether it was right or wrong. They just said they violated the state statute. That was it. So while they declare a win, it really wasn't. And that's going to get vindicated here with the Wyoming Republican Party. The state party has filed in federal court against this Title 22, the state statute. And again, it's almost going to be a no-brainer because the U.S. Supreme Court has already ruled on this issue numerous times. So once we go through the federal court on this, the federal court will strike that down.
And so, where do you see our party, the Republican Party as it is today, since that first happened? And what year did that happen in?
Holy heck, you would ask me that off the.
And I can't remember if it was 22.
No, it was 20. It was 18. 2018 was the election that it was sued over.
Okay, and then I kind of got involved after that, so that's been quite some time. So where do you see the party today? Because we participated in the caucus, we participated in the convention. They actually tried to bring a resolution to ban you from the party. Tell us a little bit about that and why they did that.
Well, okay, so there was an issue that happened at one of the state central committee meetings held over in Torrington. I still go to state central committee meetings, and I still take part in the state party. For example, I am the statewide trainer for the for poll watchers. I'm the chair of the state election integrity committee. So I still am very much involved with the state party. So I showed up at the state central committee meeting in Torrington, and Saturday morning, as we're getting ready to start the meeting, our state committee man and state committee woman, Lonnie and Shannon Meeks, are there. And I asked them, I said, have you guys seen Rowdy? He's our current county chairman. Said, no. I say, and they said, what have we heard from? Well, not Rowdy, but he had given his proxy to BJ Stokes, who is the vice chair. So BJ was supposed to show up. And I said, have you seen BJ? And they're like, no, haven't heard from him either. So I called BJ. I said, hey, where are you at? The meeting's about ready to get going. He says, and he told me, he says, Karl, he says, something came up, a family deal or something, and I can't make it. I'm not going to make it. He says, well, you're already there, and I knew you were going to be there anyway. He says, would you just carry the proxy? I said, fine. So BJ signed the proxy over to me, sent it in to the state party, and they had me carry the proxy. Now, my carrying the proxy did not change the outcome of any votes, the outcome of any issues, but because I had the proxy, we come back and Rowdy was very upset about it. I mean, he wasn't there. He had given the proxy to BJ, and BJ gave it to me, and our county was fully represented at the meeting. Well, Rowdy got mad. He filed a complaint with the state party saying that I was carrying his proxy illegally. And again, this is something that just happened. Proxies are there to help keep the party, the counties represented when things come up and somebody can't be there. And anyway, he made a big deal about it. I didn't know. I got a phone call from the state chairman. He says, do you know there's been a complaint filed against you? I go, what'd I do? So Rowdy didn't come and talk to me, didn't ask anything. He just goes out this, and he's very upset. again, I'm thinking, well, this has happened numerous times over the many years I've been in the party. I didn't think there was an issue. So anyway, the state party says, well, there's nothing we're going to do about it. There's no, and they say, okay, fine. If that's the way you feel about it, we'll change the rules for the future, and that won't happen again. So that's fine. I'm thinking it's done and over. Well, anyway, Rowdy got together with John Conrad, and they wrote this resolution. And then Rowdy took it to Ryan Berger and asked him to run that resolution at the county convention. And in the resolution, they asked for a roll call vote. And basically, the resolution said that I would be banned from all Republican Party events, all Republican Party meetings. I would basically be thrown out of the party, which legally they can't do. Anybody can be a member of the party, but that's the way the resolution was written. And it was very much just done by Rowdy against me. And in fact, Ryan Berger came up to me later and he said, Karl, he says, I've always respected you and your family and stuff. He says, I didn't write that resolution. I said, I know you didn't write it. Ryan, I know who wrote it. And he says, yeah, Rowdy brought it to me and asked me to run it. I said, yeah, I knew that. I said, I have no problem. Ryan, I'll talk to you about anything, anytime, anywhere you want to talk. We can sit down and have a conversation. I don't hold those things on people. But anyway, they called for a roll call vote on that. And the roll call vote was unanimous. They voted that down.
So even they didn't vote for it.
No, they didn't. And I'll tell you what, I mean, to be honest, a lot of times I don't always show a lot of emotion, but that one really hit me pretty good. The fact that I had the support of the entire convention on that. And I was absolutely flabbergasted when that was brought up. I'm like, I have never seen that anywhere. And I've been a lifelong Republican from the time I was a young kid. I used to go to meetings with my parents, and stuff. And, but I've never seen anything that hateful against somebody. But that's kind of where, and the Republican Party today in Uinta County is still very divided. I don't understand. Our current chair, when he came in, he promised that the previous ones, when Joy Bell was chair, they would not send notices to anybody else except for precinct committee people. Ryan promised that he would fix that.
Or Rowdy.
Rowdy did, yeah. That all Republicans would get these notices. That has failed to happen. He won't do it. He said, well, we want to heal the party and bring the divisiveness back, unify the party back together. And since that time, I'm like, Rowdy, I will help you in any way I can. Biff has said the same things. We've extended our hands out. Tell us what we can do to help you. And he has soundly refused all offers of help in every aspect. And I really don't know what else to do. We've offered to, hey, we'll help you however we can. You're the chair, and we'll help you.
And the county website is still down, isn't it? Is the county website?
I don't know. It was down. But see, that was one thing too. Both, I started actually Ron Wild, when he was chairman, then later myself, followed by Lyle and by Biffy. We used to send out emails about the meetings to anybody who has ever given us their email address. And I know that when Joy Bell took over from Biffy, she gave her the email list that we had that started, that I had, and I passed it to Lyle, and Lyle passed it to Biffy, and it's just been added and added upon. But we had, Republicans all over the county that were on this email list. Biff has also offered, gave it to Rowdy, but they will not send out notices to people. And I just don't get it, because The Republican Party is supposed to be grassroots. While we have precinct committee people as representatives, while we have our 3 delegates to the state committee as representatives, the bottom line is it's grassroots and the people have the right to be heard. I know when I was chairman, I allowed anybody, even not a precinct committee person, but if they had something to say at one of the meetings, I allowed them to speak. In fact, I remember Larissa, who was the vice chair of the Democrat Party at the time, used to come to our meetings and she'd sit there on her computer and take notes throughout it. I never kicked her out. That's fine. Now, she didn't get to speak, but because she was in the leadership in the Democrat Party. But you want to come sit in our meetings? Go ahead. They're open to the people, unless we ever went into executive session, which was extremely rare. But other than that, anybody was always welcome. And I think that's one thing that I see is very different today. It's the county party is not as welcoming. It's not as open to people. And, even still, like I say, they don't, when asked about why they're not following Robert's rules, Rowdy said, well, we decided we're not going to do that. That's not something you get to decide. It's in the bylaws. Here we have an election coming up. It's in the bylaws the chairman is supposed to take every partisan race, every delegate, take them a copy of the party platform. Again, we come back to that document and ask them to read it, go through and mark off what they agree with, what they don't agree with in the platform, and sign it. That is right.
We're not asking for 100% compliance because you might have some difference of opinion.
Oh, absolutely. People definitely have some differences sometimes. But if they go through it, read it, mark it, and sign it, that says, okay, you're saying that you will support this much of the platform. The party standard is 80%. That number came from Ronald Reagan. If you agree 80% of the time, you're on the same page. So anyway, that's something the chairman's supposed to do. It's right in the bylaws. That's a responsibility of theirs. As I mentioned, I'm the chairman for the Election Integrity Committee for the state party, and part of that is training poll watchers. I saw Rowdy the other day, and I asked him, I said, have you got your poll watchers lined up for the county? Because they have to be trained. He has to certify them to the county clerk for them to be poll watchers. And he told me, he says, well, I asked everybody who did it, and they're not interested. Well, I've talked to some of those people, and they say they have never been contacted by Rowdy. So we have nothing coming from the county party for poll watchers. Some have joined the training, and they've been trained, and those that have been, their names will be given to the chairman, and he is supposed to certify those to the county clerk so that they can work as poll watchers in the upcoming primary on the 18th of August. But it really comes down to, is the party operating as the party today? I don't think it is. And
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's something that I've put my life and my love into for so many years. I don't know. It really kind of bothers me.
It's disheartening. Well, and on a state level, so when we were at convention, they came up with some new bylaws, and yes, they are being challenged in court. But I want you to kind of explain, and I'm not saying this because I want to be endorsed by the party. I'm not saying that.
Sure.
What I am saying is, and I had nothing to do with the bylaws, really. I mean, as a total of the whole body, perhaps I voted on it. But tell us a little bit about the vetting committee, that we shall have a vetting committee, why they were opposed, and where that's left us in this election cycle.
Well, so one of the new bylaws in where, and this goes along with the state saying they want to, comply with the Supreme Court rulings. And it says that the party should have a voice. Again, it's kind of ludicrous to think that the party cannot say this person represents the ideals of the Republican Party and this person doesn't until after the primary. Here in Wyoming, 95% of the elections are done at the primary. That's it. That's who's going to be the winner in the general. And so in the new bylaw, the bylaws that, again, came from the counties up to the state, voted on by the body of the state, and the entirety of the Republican Party in Wyoming voted on this and said this is the way we're going to operate. The new part of the bylaws says that the county parties shall have a committee to vet candidates. The state party shall have a party to vet candidates. They may endorse. Now, one thing that's kind of neat is shall and may are legal terms. Shall means you're going to do it. The vetting committee. Basically, the things are they're going to vet the different candidates, number one, against the party platform. Because again, as I said, the body of the Republican Party in Wyoming says, this are our principles that we stand by as Republicans. So when you have a vetting committee, you'll take all the candidates that are running for a specific office, and if they're an incumbent, they have a voting record. If they're not an incumbent, they have a record of things they've said, any other actions that they've taken, if they've been involved in the public life, just different things that you look at on them. And they say, okay, well, are these people following the Republican Party platform? And that's what the vetting is. This person is in line with the Republican Party platform. This person is in opposition to the Republican Party. And then we let the public know. One thing that happens a lot, especially here in Uinta County, it happens the rest of the state too, is a lot of these people don't really take the time to look, understand the candidates, and know who they're voting for. Well, this person has an R behind their name, and I happen to know them. I've met them. They've been here, so I know the name, so I'm going to put, they say they're an R, so I'm going to vote for them. Well, when you look at it, for example, some of our legislative candidates, very much here in Uinta County, we have one legislative candidate who does not follow the platform in any way, shape, or form and votes, numbers are between 85 to 90% with the Democrats. Well, the party should let people know. That's what the vetting process is. We have 3 House legislators who, 2 of them are in the Freedom Caucus, 1 isn't. But they follow the Republican Party platform. They vote conservatively. And so the public should know, this person follows the platform. Now, there is another step that is not mandated. The vetting is supposed to happen, but past the vetting, they can publicly endorse, saying the Republican Party endorses this candidate. And that's where they've been threatened with lawsuits. Well, if you endorse this candidate, I'm going to sue you. Well, if they get endorsed, if they get vetted, there's a reason for that. Why are you not vetting this candidate as being in line with Republican principles, and you are this one? And so when they say, oh, well, we're going to sue you if you tell the public about it. Okay, so we're supposed to sit back and be quiet when you have a Democrat running for a Republican office, and we're not supposed to tell the people about that. Anyway, like I say, the vetting is a shall. The endorsements is a may. Now, the state party decided to endorse for the federal offices and for the 4 of the top 5. The fifth one, the state auditor, Christy Racinas, fantastic. Love working with her. She's great. And she would have gotten that endorsement, except she has no opponent. So she is in without an opponent. But they decide to endorse in all the other races. Once again, that is a culmination of the entire state. They had a vetting committee and they said, these are the results of our vetting on these candidates. Then the state central committee met and they voted, we're going to endorse this one, we're not going to endorse this one, and they voted that way. Well, here in Uinta County, when the shall part of that we will have a committee for vetting candidates, and again, it does not say in the bylaws that we have to publish the results of that vetting, but just that we have to have a committee to vet. Well, a group got together before the meeting and they came up with a plan to stop this in its tracks. And right off the bat at the meeting, Ron Michaeli made a motion to not have a vetting committee and not do any endorsements and no vetting. Well, first off, once again, our bylaws say we have to have a committee. They just did not want to even start that, having a committee.
And we adopted that from the state bylaws, correct? That is in the state bylaws.
Yes, the state bylaws says
county
it,
bylaws. Okay.
and the county bylaws. One thing about county bylaws, you can have your own bylaws, but they cannot conflict with state bylaws in any way, shape, or form. That was another lawsuit here. Natrona County, they got at odds with the state party, and they said, we don't have to follow your bylaws. So they went to court, and the court said, the county parties are a child of the state party. They don't exist without the state party, and they're chartered by the state party. So yes, you have to comply with state party bylaws, and the courts ruled with the state party on that side. So yes, you do have to comply with state party bylaws. And again, we're in violation of that. So.
All right, my friend, we're going to have to wrap it up. We've got about an hour in. I appreciate so much you talking with me today because I think that was very informative to the public when they're trying to understand why the Republican Party is kind of where it's at.
Sure.
So, do you have any final words you want to tell the people?
Just one thing. If anybody has any questions, any things they, want more information, or if they just want to disagree with me or anything like that, feel free to give me a call, 307-679-8054. And you can call me, you can email me, Karl T. Allred at gmail.com. Karl's with a K. Feel free to reach out at any time. If you agree with what I've said, let me know. If you disagree, let me know that too. And I'm more than happy to have a conversation at any time with anybody.
Okay. And we want to encourage people. We want everybody to be involved in the Republican Party because it is a grassroots and we really want to represent all voices in the county. It takes all kinds to make a great party. So, all right. Thank you so much. And we will see you very soon. So,
Tina, it's been a pleasure. Thanks to all of you guys. And I hope this gets out a lot.
Thank you so much.